Hello and welcome to my very own top 10 greatest heavyweights of all time. First of all, I'd like to thank all the viewers and subscribers of my Yahoo channel. I'm sure most of you have watched the top 10 greatest heavyweights of all time with Burt Randolph Sugar. Some of you may have agreed, some of you may have disagreed. There have been many comments on various parts of the top 10 greatest heavyweights of all time. Many of the comments have been very interesting and very intelligent. Some of them less so, but we won't go into that right now. So here is my top 10 as I see it, and the criteria is as follows. It's how each fighter, obviously how they performed in their own era, but also how they would have performed against one another. I don't think you can put one fighter ahead of another and in reality you think they would have beaten them maybe in a 3-fight series. First of all, number 10, I have Tunney. Tunney was a very, very good boxer. Boxed in the conventional way. He would not look out of place today. He was well ahead of his time. You know, the right hand up, leading with the left, flicking out straight left jabs, right crosses, moving around the ring from left to right. I mean, nobody had seen a heavyweight box in that way, and he, as far as I can tell, he was the first to box in that way, and he used it with great success over 2 fights against Dempsey. I believe over the 20 rounds he won 19 of the 20 rounds over the 2 fights, albeit Jack Dempsey had been inactive for I think at least 2, maybe 3 years before the first fight with Tunney. But even still, a fantastic boxer, a fantastic record, and he, I believe, set the standard to the way many of the guys fight today. So number 10 for me, Tunney. Number 9 on my list is Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey, very, very tough, very, very hard puncher, very tenacious. A man that went forward trying to knock his opponent out. That's the way he fought his fights, and that is the way he tried to win his fights. He didn't try to box over the distance and win on points. Very dominant in his day. Won the title from Jess Willard. Man-mountain of a guy. A guy who was a good fighter. He ended the reign of Jack Johnson, who was just outside my top 10. Albeit Jack Johnson had been inactive for 2-3 years and in exile, and he was brought back to fight the white hope of the day, Jess Willard. Defended his title then against the up-and-coming Jack Dempsey, who was a very, very tough guy, very ferocious, very hard puncher, albeit by today's standards, and even by the standard of the guy who followed him, Tunney. Maybe a little bit crude, but tough nonetheless, very, very good at what he did. And for me, he's up there in the top 10 at number 9. Number 8 for me is Joe Louis. Fantastic record, 72 fights, 69 victories, only 3 defeats. There's a lot of talk about the Joe Louis era, that the opposition he was up against wasn't perhaps the best, but I think that's an easy thing to lay onto a dominant champion. I mean, you know, he made a lot of very good fighters look very ordinary, but a fantastic fighter, a fantastic record, held the heavyweight championship of the world for over a decade, and that takes a lot of doing, regardless of your opposition. So he was a fantastic fighter, fantastic boxer, excellent puncher, not the biggest guy in the world. That is why I've got a few guys ahead of him, but for me, Joe Louis, number 8. Number 7 for me is Evander Holyfield. Fantastic record, 57 fights, 44 victories, 10 defeats. Most of those defeats came towards the end of Evander Holyfield's career, which ended when he was at pushing 50. I believe he lost something like 8 out of his last 10 fights, and that wasn't the Holyfield of his prime years. I mean, in his prime, a very, very hard man to beat, a very, very good chin, a granite chin, very fast on his feet, a good puncher, good ring technician. Again, a more natural cruiserweight who bulked up to fight at heavyweight. That's why I've got some guys ahead of him, but a very, very tough guy. Had some fantastic victories in his career, including the second fight with Riddick Bowe in particular. I thought that was a fantastic performance by Holyfield. The victory over Mike Tyson, fair enough, Mike Tyson had his problems and he'd been away for a few years. And Holyfield had been very active during that period. But again, that was another fantastic performance by Holyfield. So, in my opinion, number 7, Evander Holyfield. Number 6, I've got George Foreman. A very good record, 85 fights with 76 victories, a massive 58 KOs, only 5 defeats. Fought in that real heyday era of the 70s with Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Ken Norton. When George Foreman became the heavyweight champion of the world in 1973, he was looking invincible. He smashed the title away from Joe Frazier, who was regarded as a very, very good champion. Foreman knocked him down, I believe it was 6 times. Defended it against the regarded as the next best heavyweight in the world at the time, even possibly above Muhammad Ali. He beat Ken Norton had beaten Muhammad Ali on points, and deservedly so. Smashed Ken Norton out inside 2 rounds, and then he came to Ali, who several years earlier had lost to Frazier on points in a fantastic fight, the so-called fight of the century in its day. Had lost a decision to Ken Norton, albeit Ali broke his jaw in that fight. But over 3 fights against Norton, there's an argument to say Ken Norton may have won all 3 of those fights, but that's up for debate. So he fights Muhammad Ali, nobody gives Ali a chance, but Ali had the ring intelligence. He knew Foreman would come at him, and he allowed Foreman to hit on him and exhaust himself. Ali was picking away at him, and in the 8th round, Foreman was exhausted, and he puts him down, and he doesn't get up in time, and Foreman loses the heavyweight championship of the world. In 1987, I believe, George Foreman comes back. He's 37 years of age by then. Nobody gives him a prayer. They think it's some sort of joke. You know, he'll have 5 fights, make some money and go away again. But nothing of the sort. He works his way up, fighting a lot of guys who were significantly below his level. Then he gets a crack at Evander Holyfield. He was a very, very good champion. Young, fit, very strong, great chin. Takes him the distance, and Foreman gets a lot of credit for that. And he soldiers on, and eventually, as most of us boxing fans will know, he gets to fight Michael Moore. Not the greatest heavyweight champion you've ever seen, but still the heavyweight champion of the world. 25 at the time, George Foreman was 45. And we all know George Foreman wins back the heavyweight championship of the world at the age of 45 by knocking out Michael Moore in the 10th round. So, a fantastic achievement. One of the all-time greats of boxing. A very good chin. Yes, he fell from exhaustion against Ali. He was knocked down a couple of times by Ron Lyle, I believe, in about 76 or 77. But a very good chin. He was never put down after his comeback in 87. Carried on until he eventually lost. Even then, it was a controversial decision to Shannon Briggs. I thought we won that fight, but we won't go into that in this particular discussion. But for me, George Foreman, number 6.